this. It's my math closet.
What's that?
You don't like it? Then you can take this track and pause it, 'cause this is a deposit in the future of math. This used to be a door, and now
It's math class.
math closet.
Math closet.
Good morning. Today we are going to be talking about adding and subtracting radical expressions. Before we jump into that, I wanted to refresh you really quick on combining like terms. We've used that in the past mostly when we worked with expressions with potentially different variables, and you'll remember that in order to combine two different terms, you need to have the same variable in them. So to show you an example of this, on the board you'll see two different expressions. One of them is 2x plus 3x, and that's something that we can combine because both terms have an x in them. So 2x plus 3x is the same as 5x, but this expression on the bottom cannot be simplified. You cannot combine any of those terms because this term has an x, this term has a y, and so this is as simplified as you can get. So the reason I bring that up is because adding and subtracting radical expressions works in a very similar way. Here is a pretty basic example. Here we have 2 radical 5 plus 3 radical 5. And just like when we were combining like terms, we looked for the same variable. We can do the same thing here as long as we have the same radicand. And so in both of these, we have a radical 5, and so that means we can combine these two terms to make 5 radical 5. So we have 2 of them here, 3 of them here. We end up with 5, just like we had 2x and 3x, so in total we have 5. I'm going to show you a quick set of examples to make sure you see all the different ways that this can work. Here are 2 of them. First, you'll see that we have 3 radical 7 plus radical 7. This works similarly to when you see a variable by itself. We've used the term invisible 1. That same idea is going to apply here as well. And so what that means is that if I'm trying to simplify this top expression, I look and I say, well, I have the same radicand, so those are like terms. I have 3 of them there and 1 of them here. And so 3 radical 7 plus 1 radical 7 is the same as 4 radical 7. Moving on to the bottom expression, I wanted to make sure you guys saw an example with subtraction. So here you'll see 2 radical 2 minus 6 radical 2. So you'll see 2 is in the radicand for both of these terms. That means we can combine them. And so all I'm going to do is say, okay, 2 minus 6. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. And so this simplifies out to negative 4 radical 2. So just like when we're adding and subtracting variables, you can have negative results. All right, last 2 examples. Remember, it's not like we can always combine radical expressions, right? So in this example, we have 2 radical 5 plus 3 radical 3. And remember what we talked about with combining like terms, these are different radicands. So a radical 5 is not the same as a radical 3. And so for an expression like this is as far as you can go. You cannot simplify this further. And you might think a similar thing for an expression like this, right? So here we had a 5 and a 3, those are different, so you can't combine them. A 2 and an 18, also very different. The question you have to ask yourself is this as simplified as it can be? And if you remember what we did last week, we can simplify some radical expressions if there is a perfect square contained in the radicand. And so this 18 can be broken down. So if I break down this radical 18 into its prime factors, I'll say, well, 18 is 2 times 9, 9 is 3 times 3. There's a pair of prime factors, this 3 and this 3. So I can simplify radical 18 as there's a pair of 3's, so 3 can go outside of the radical sign. And there's a 2 that didn't have a pair, so the 2 stays inside the radical. So radical 18 is the same as 3 radical 2. And so what that means is that this original expression, which might have looked like it wasn't something that could be simplified further, actually can be. And so I've rewritten it down here. This 2 radical 2 is the exact same. We weren't able to do anything with that, but we did see that this radical 18 can be simplified to 3 radical 2. And now if I look at this expression, I see, well, I do have the same radicand, and that means I can combine those. And 2 radical 2 plus 3 radical 2 is 5 radical